In a quiet village surrounded by lush green fields and distant hills, there lived a pious man named Umar. He was known throughout the village for his wisdom and devotion to God. Umar had only one sister, Amina, who lived in another village, a few hours' walk away. Like her brother, Amina was a devoted servant of God, spending her days in prayer and performing good deeds. She lived a simple yet meaningful life, and her brother Umar would occasionally visit her to ensure she was well. Unfortunately, one day, he was unable to make the trip to see her, which deeply saddened him. Amina, this pious woman, had 3 sons who had all reached adulthood. She had carefully arranged marriages for them, hoping they would lead happy and virtuous lives. However, though people are often good themselves, they rarely encounter others who are as good-hearted as they are. This was exactly what happened to Amina. Her 3 daughters-in-law, though outwardly polite, were far more cunning than sincere. Whenever Amina retreated to her room to pray, her daughters-in-law would feel irritated. They couldn't understand why a woman would spend so much time repeating the name of God instead of doing something useful. But in truth, Amina did all the household chores herself, from cleaning to cooking, and even tending to the garden. She was also known for her generosity. Whenever a beggar knocked on her door, she never sent them away empty-handed. This behavior deeply annoyed her 3 daughters-in-law, who often grew angry with her. Amina's kindness extended beyond her home. She cared deeply for her neighbors and often instructed her daughters-in-law to cook extra food, saying, "I want to share this with some of our neighbors." The 3 daughters-in-law hated this about their mother-in-law and were constantly frustrated by her habits. Every morning, she would wake them up early, saying, "Wake up, my daughters. Pray the dawn prayer, keep the house clean, and recite the Holy Quran." The 3 women had no desire to worship God, but they obeyed out of obligation to their mother-in-law. They often grumbled among themselves, complaining about her strict routines and her insistence on charity. One morning, Amina woke one of her daughters-in-law and said, "Wake up, my daughter. Pray and clean the house. Today, I will invite many people and feed them." Hearing this, one of the daughters-in-law asked, "Mother, is an important person coming to our house today?" Amina replied calmly, No, I am not inviting any important person. Rather, I am inviting the poor from our community. I want to feed them here at home. We will need a large table to serve them, and you, my daughters, will have to cook for them." She added with a gentle smile, "My daughters know this. Whoever feeds a poor person, even if it is just one meal, earns the pleasure of God." Upon hearing this, the 3 daughters-in-law became furious. They whispered among themselves, "I feel like I've fallen into a trap by coming to this house. Always cooking for the poor or the orphans. Where does this woman get all this money? Does she have some magical source? Or where does she pull it from to spend so much on them?" They often asked their husbands, "Where does your mother get this money? Does she have land or savings somewhere?" The husbands would reply, "Our mother has always had a charitable heart. In our family, we value good deeds. Just do as she asks." The 3 sons deeply respected their mother, but they were slightly influenced by their wives' complaints. Over time, the daughters-in-law began to plot ways to harass their mother-in-law, hoping to discourage her so much that she would leave the house. They tried everything they could think of, ignoring her, speaking rudely, and even neglecting their duties. But despite their efforts, they could not make the pious woman unhappy. By the infinite mercy of God, Amina remained steadfast in her faith and kindness, untouched by their malice. Her heart was filled with peace, and she continued to pray for her daughters-in-law, hoping they would one day understand the value of kindness and faith. One day, as Amina rested in her room, the 3 daughters-in-law gathered to discuss their grievances. One of them said, "I am completely exhausted. I don't know when we'll finally be rid of this old woman. I wonder when she will leave this world, so we can finally breathe freely." Another added, "Every day, this old lady burdens us with work, cooking huge pots of food for strangers. I can't take it anymore. The third chimed in, "Because of her, I can't even take care of my own children. All she thinks about is feeding the poor. She needs to leave this house, one way or another." One evening, the youngest daughter-in-law sat folding laundry, waiting for her husband to return home. When her husband, Catter, arrived from work, he noticed his wife seemed upset. She said to him, "Today, your mother overwhelmed me with household chores again. 50 people came to eat here, and I was the one who cooked everything. Look at my hands. They're covered in blisters. I can't take it anymore. You have to choose, either us or your mother." Hearing these words, Catter looked to his two older brothers for their opinion. Unfortunately, they too sided with their wives, saying that their mother demanded too much from them. Seeing this, the pious Amina was deeply hurt. She said to her sons, "Very well, my sons, since this is what you wish, I will leave. I don't want you to suffer because of me." The sons didn't seem too concerned about where their mother would go or how she would survive. They assumed she would probably go to her brother Umar's house in the neighboring village. Amina left the house with very few belongings, and no one paid much attention to her departure. However, she didn't want to burden her brother or be a weight on him. She walked alone on the road, not knowing exactly where to go. Along the way, she met a young man, very handsome, who approached her and said, "Mother, are you going somewhere alone?" Amina replied, "No, my son. I'm just searching for my destination." The young man smiled and said, "I see you're alone, mother. Come with me. I have a small house not far from here, and I live there by myself. You can stay with me without any problems." The young man led Amina to a small house nestled in a peaceful forest. A clear river flowed in front of the house, and the surroundings were serene and beautiful. The pious woman said, "My son, you live in such a beautiful place. Do you have family somewhere?" The young man replied, "No, mother. I'm an orphan, but from today, you will be my mother. Stay here with me." Hearing these words, Amina thanked God and said, "I would like to pray." The young man showed her a room and said, "You can pray here as much as you want. Thank God as you please." Then he left the house to go to work. Amina was deeply impressed by the young man's devotion. Despite his young age, he seemed so aware of the importance of worshiping God. Every day, he would return home at prayer time, pray with her, and then leave again for his work. One day, as Amina prayed, she spoke to God, saying, "Oh Allah, you know my heart. You know that I never want to be a burden to anyone. I love feeding the poor, but because of this, my own sons have driven me out of their home. I don't hold it against them, and I don't curse them, but I am sad that I cannot feed anyone here." As she thought this, someone knocked on the door. She opened it and saw a group of poor and needy women standing outside. Surprised, she asked them why they had come. One woman replied, "We heard that meals are served here." Amazed, Amina said, No one here has prepared any food." But the woman insisted, "Go and see outside. There's a large pot where food is cooking." Curious, Amina went outside and saw that a large amount of food was indeed cooking in a giant pot. She didn't understand how this was possible. The young man wasn't there, and no one seemed to have cooked the food. A large table was set, and everyone sat down to eat. Amina also ate and thanked God, saying, "Oh Allah, you have heard my prayers. How did this happen? I thank you 1,000 times." She thought this feast was a one-time event, but every day after the dawn prayer, the pot would miraculously fill with food. The poor would come every morning and leave with their bellies full. Gradually, news of this extraordinary event spread to the neighboring villages, including the one where Amina's sons and daughters-in-law lived. They heard about a house deep in the forest where meals were miraculously prepared every day for the poor, orphans, and needy. No one in the village could explain how it happened, but the story of the pious woman and the miraculous pot of food became the talk of the region. They never went to bed hungry because of this mysterious house. The three curious and beautiful daughters decided to see it for themselves. They made a plan and left in secret without telling their husbands. When they arrived, they saw a small house in the forest with a large pot where food was cooking and a crowd of people eating around a huge table. When they were invited to eat, they lowered their heads and said, "We do not eat food meant for the poor and beggars. Are we poor to do such a thing?" A woman there told them, "We have heard that this food is miraculous, that it even heals the sick." One of the beautiful daughters replied, "We don't believe such stories." Another added, "We are tired of our stepmother." The youngest daughter then said, "Tell us, who lives in this house? It must be a very rich person to cook like this every day." A woman answered, "It's not a man who lives here, but a pious old woman, a servant of God who loves to feed everyone." Hearing this, the three daughters were shocked. They whispered to each other, "Could this be our stepmother? But how could she be here when she's supposed to be at her brother's house in another village?" The youngest suggested, "Let's go inside and check." The three daughters quietly entered the house. To their surprise, they heard a beautiful recitation of the Quran. However, it wasn't a woman's voice but a man's. As they stood in front of the house, an old man with a white beard and glowing skin suddenly appeared before them. Trembling with fear, they asked, "Who are you?" The old man replied, "I should be asking you that. Who are you, and what are you doing here?" The three frightened daughters answered, "We are nobody. We came to see this house." The old man asked, "Did you eat?" Out of shame, they lied and said, "Yes, we ate." Then they left the house, laughing among themselves. The youngest said, "It was just an old man. There was nothing special here." Another added, "Maybe this old woman really does good, but it doesn't change what I think of her." As they laughed, one of the daughters suddenly screamed, "What's happening to me?" The other two turned and saw her face change in an instant. They too began to change. All three were turned into dogs. Horrified, they realized what had happened but didn't understand how. Transformed into animals, they walked for hours until they reached their husband's house. However, when they arrived, their husbands didn't recognize them and chased them away with sticks. The three women, now dogs, took refuge behind a large wall, crying over their fate. They heard their husbands say, "We don't know where our wives have gone. They disappeared without a trace." The three beautiful daughters, now hungry and desperate, said to each other, "Let's go to the house in the forest where everyone is fed. Maybe eating that food will bring us back to our human form." The three daughters, still in their dog forms, went to the house in the forest. When they arrived, they saw people eating around the large table. However, when the people saw them, they began to chase them away, hitting or pushing them. The three women, humiliated, realized they were now being treated the same way they had treated the poor before. As they tried to get closer, the handsome and mysterious young man appeared. He spoke to them, saying, "I see that you are hungry, but unfortunately, this food is not for you. It is meant for those who share the pain of others and act with compassion, something you did not do. Your behavior broke the heart of a pious old woman." The three dogs, unable to speak, began to cry. The young man added, "I understand that you were once human, but your arrogant and cruel behavior led you to this state. Follow me." He took them into the house and introduced them to the old man with the white beard. The old man smiled sadly and said, "If only you had eaten this food with humility and compassion that day, you would not have been transformed like this. But you refused because you felt superior to others. You drove a pious woman out of her home, a devoted servant of God who fed the poor and orphans with everything she had." The three dogs, with tears in their eyes, cried and expressed their regret in their animal language. The old man, with compassion, said, "By the grace of God, I will restore your human speech so you can confess your faults." When their speech was restored, the youngest daughter cried out, "We admit that we were arrogant and cruel. We always looked down on others and broke our stepmother's heart. We hated and despised her good deeds. But who are you, "And how do you know all this?" The old man replied, "The woman you drove out of the house and forced to leave is my sister. You often wondered where she got the money to feed the poor. In reality, she had nothing, but God, in His mercy, multiplied her good deeds. What you see here is the result of her faith and prayers. She never bothered me to come to my house because she didn't want to be a burden to anyone. A special servant of God brought her here to protect her." The three daughters, deeply ashamed, fell to their knees and cried, "Please forgive us. Give us a chance to see our stepmother and ask for her forgiveness. We no longer deserve to live as human beings, but we have understood the value of a human life." The old man turned to the young man and said, "Go and fetch my sister." A few moments later, Amina arrived. When they saw her, the three daughters, still in dog form, threw themselves at her feet and cried, "Mother, forgive us. We have been cruel and ungrateful." The pious woman, with tears in her eyes, replied, "My daughters, I never cursed or hated you. I never prayed against you because my heart was filled with love for you. I did all this for the sake of my children, for their happiness and peace." The three daughters then said, "Mother, you have forgiven us, but we do not deserve to become human again. Let us live like this, for it is the punishment we deserve for our arrogance and bad actions." But Amina, with compassion, replied, "No, my daughters. It pains me too much to see you like this. My heart is broken to see you this way." She turned to her brother and said, "Brother, pray to God to forgive them and restore them to their human form." The old man raised his hands to the sky and pleaded, "O Allah, you are the most merciful. These women have sinned, but they have understood their mistakes and sincerely regret their actions. Forgive them and restore them to their human state by your infinite grace." The prayer was answered, and the three beautiful daughters regained their human appearance. Trembling and in tears, they fell at Amina's feet, repeating, "Mother, you are our true mother. We never treated you as such, but from today, we promise to treat you as our own mother." Amina smiled gently at them and said, "I have always seen you as my own daughters. Now, let's go home and build a life filled with kindness and charity together." The old man gave them the large pot, saying, "Continue to feed the poor and serve the needy. Through charity and kindness, God forgives sins and protects from great calamities." From that day on, the three daughters, filled with remorse and gratitude, worked alongside their stepmother to feed the poor and help orphans. Their home became a symbol of hope and generosity in the entire village. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If this story touched you and you enjoy tales that blend life lessons with captivating plots, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos.